The sun hung low in the sky as five friends pulled up to the campsite in a weathered old truck. Emma, the planner of the group, hopped out first, her enthusiasm palpable. "Welcome to our weekend getaway," she exclaimed, stretching her arms toward the trees. Jake, Sarah, Ryan, and Lisa followed, rolling their eyes but smiling at her excitement. They unpacked the car, setting up tents while reminiscing about their college days. The laughter flowed freely, but beneath the surface, unspoken tensions lingered. As night fell, they gathered around a fire, the warmth contrasting with the cool evening air. The flames flickered, casting dancing shadows as they roasted marshmallows and shared stories. "What's everyone's biggest fear?" Ryan joked, aiming to lighten the mood. They laughed, but when Emma suggested they take turns sharing, the atmosphere shifted. One by one, they confessed their fears of failure, loneliness, and the pressure to succeed. "I'm just scared of disappointing everyone," Emma admitted, her voice softer than usual. As they spoke, an unspoken bond seemed to tighten, even as secrets loomed in the background. The next day, the group decided to explore deeper into the woods. After a couple of hours of hiking, they stumbled upon an old cabin, half hidden by thick underbrush. Intrigued, they approached, exchanging glances filled with curiosity and caution. Inside, they found layers of dust and forgotten furniture. The air was stale, thick with the scent of decay. Amidst the debris, Jake discovered an old radio, surprisingly intact. "Check this out," he called, brushing off the dust. They gathered around as Jake fiddled with the knobs. After some crackling static, a haunting melody filled the air, a slow, melancholic tune that felt both familiar and unsettling. The song played on repeat, creating an eerie atmosphere. "What a weird song," Lisa said, her brow furrowing. "It feels like it's watching us." Ignoring her unease, they decided to take the radio back to the campsite. As they settled down for the night, the song continued to play, almost hypnotic in its repetition. As the fire crackled and the stars sparkled overhead, the friends relaxed, but the atmosphere shifted as the music played on. At first, they chatted and joked, but gradually, they began to hear faint whispers woven into the melody. "Did you guys hear that?" Sarah asked, tilting her head. The others nodded, eyes wide with confusion. The whispers grew louder, and soon they realized they were hearing their own voices, echoing their darkest secrets. Each of them heard their own fears and regrets, intermingled with the haunting melody. Emma heard herself confessing feelings of inadequacy, echoes of her voice telling her she wasn't good enough for her family. Jake was confronted by his past, hearing his own voice admitting to cheating on a girlfriend, guilt seeping into the air. Sarah listened in horror as her voice expressed envy towards Emma's success, wishing she could be as accomplished. Ryan was enveloped by laughter, his own voice revealing how much he despised being the funny guy, the facade crumbling around him. Lisa felt the crushing weight of her own voice, whispering that she was a burden to her friends, never fitting in. Panic started to rise. They exchanged uneasy glances, but the music kept playing, pulling them deeper into a vortex of fear. As darkness enveloped the forest, the atmosphere thickened with dread. The whispers escalated, becoming almost frantic. Each friend, feeling trapped in their own nightmare, was forced to confront their fears head-on. Suddenly, the radio crackled and the song stopped. The silence was deafening, replaced by a low hum that seemed to pulse through the ground. "Let's turn it off," Emma suggested, her voice trembling. "No, wait," Jake said, a mix of fear and fascination in his eyes. "Let's see what happens." The moment he said that, Emma's face turned pale as a dark figure appeared near the edge of the clearing. It was a shadowy manifestation of her parents, their expressions twisted in disappointment. "You're not good enough, Emma," they whispered, their voices echoing in her mind. Emma screamed, stumbling back as the shadows advanced, clawing at her insecurities. "No, stop it," she cried, trying to escape the reality before her. Meanwhile, Jake's manifestation took form, a ghostly figure of his ex-girlfriend, eyes blazing with fury. "You betrayed me," she screamed, and the shadows closed in, overwhelming him with shame and guilt. Sarah's visions warped into a nightmarish landscape, where she was overshadowed by Emma's success, her own accomplishments rendered worthless. "You'll never be enough," a voice taunted from the shadows. Ryan found himself engulfed in darkness, his laughter drowned out by the haunting echoes of his own voice, mocking him for pretending to be happy. "You're just a joke," it said, as the shadows tightened around him. Lisa, feeling the pressure of her own insecurities, was suddenly isolated in the darkness, a voice whispering that she would always be alone. The forest closed in, the weight of her despair suffocating. Panic erupted among them as they fought against their manifestations. They began to turn on each other, blaming the radio and each other for their torment. "Why did you bring this thing?" Emma yelled at Jake, pointing an accusatory finger. "Are you kidding? It's just a radio." Jake shot back, frustration and fear mixing in his voice. As the argument escalated, the radio crackled back to life, the haunting song returning, drowning out their voices. The air thickened with tension as they continued to fight, feeling the weight of their fears and the growing darkness around them. Realizing Lisa was missing, they paused, momentarily united in concern. "Where did she go?" Sarah asked, her eyes scanning the trees. "She probably ran off in panic," Ryan said, a tremor in his voice. "Let's find her," Emma insisted, her fear for Lisa overcoming her anger. They ventured into the woods, calling out for Lisa. The trees loomed ominously, and the forest felt alive, as if it were shifting around them, leading them deeper into despair. After what felt like hours, they finally found Lisa in a small clearing, standing near the old cabin, her eyes wide with fear. She was holding the radio, but it had stopped playing. "Lisa!" they shouted, rushing toward her. But as they got closer, they noticed something was wrong. Lisa appeared entranced, staring blankly at the radio. "Turn it off," Jake pleaded, reaching for the radio. As his hand touched it, the whispers intensified, echoing their fears louder than ever. "No, you don't understand," Lisa shouted, her voice breaking. "It shows us our truths." Suddenly, the radio burst back to life, and the haunting song blared even louder, shaking the very ground beneath them. The shadows of their fears encircled them, and they realized they had to confront not only the manifestations, but the dark force that had been awakened by their secrets. With a shared understanding, they knew they had to band together. They formed a circle, holding hands tightly, bracing themselves against the darkness. "On three," Emma said, her voice firm despite the terror in her eyes. "1, 2, 3. They pulled the radio into the center, their voices united. "We reject our fears. We are more than our secrets." As they shouted, the radio crackled violently, the haunting song warping into a screeching chaos. The shadows began to dissolve, and the pressure around them lessened. Finally, with one last scream, they threw the radio to the ground, shattering it into pieces. The echoes faded, and the forest fell silent, the oppressive weight lifting as dawn began to break. Breathless and shaken, they stood in the clearing, the first rays of sunlight piercing through the trees. They looked at one another, eyes wide with relief, but also an understanding of the darkness they had faced. "I can't believe we made it," Lisa whispered, tears in her eyes. As they began to walk back to their campsite, they felt the bonds of their friendship strengthen, a shared experience that would forever change them. They promised to be open and honest moving forward, to share their burdens instead of letting them fester. But as they packed up their campsite, a chilling breeze swept through the trees. The haunting melody of the radio echoed faintly in the distance, a reminder that some secrets are never truly buried.